I'm feeling like I need energy pickup, I do karaoke. If I have an assistant or a PR associate downstairs working, I won't do it because they'll probably hear me, but as soon as they leave, I'll do it. I've always loved to sing. I'm not a particularly good singer, but I love to sing. And I think I read a long time ago that when you sing or scream or do anything where you're, deflecting energy from your body, your mind goes into like a complete endorphin release, and it's exactly what happened. So I sing a lot in the car. When I used to go back and forth and had to commute, I would sing Broadway songs in the car, and here it's just whatever song that pops into my head. But Disney is my go-to, unfortunately. It was really great coming into the fall, and then I feel like I dipped a little bit, and I don't know whether it was because we had Omicron resurge, and I think in my head holidays were all going to be about seeing people, hosting people at the new house, like having a rager for New Year's Eve, and then all of a sudden it was scared. Everyone was scared again. Everyone was dropping like flies. Everyone was getting COVID. We haven't gotten it yet, so I probably started to hide a little bit for the safety of myself and others, but I didn't like that. And I think as time went on, it started to kind of break me down a little bit. So I think I felt a lot of stress during the holidays with not being able to be social or fighting with the fact that maybe I could just go out and do things. And when I'm stressed, I just try to remind myself that I'm very lucky and that some of these things are very first world problems, and then also try to, exercise or sing or do things that do make me happy. And sometimes I just go in a catatonic state and turn on Law and Order and watch SVU reruns. It's hard because I think it was a really long process, because I think when you grow up in a transracial adoption only around majority Caucasian people, with no diversity, you don't want to assimilate, but you also have no way to not assimilate, and you have no way to be familiar with your actual culture because there's no one around you like that. So I think it wasn't until really late 20s where I started to work and play in different social circles where I was given the opportunity to meet people from all over the place. And that's when I started to kind of open up more about my own heritage or culture. And it wasn't until, I would say even 2017, 2018, where I said, okay, I'm ready to go back to Korea. And once I did, I kind of just fell in love with all aspects of it, and very interested about the food, about the culture, about watching K-dramas and learning about things through that. If you asked me in 1990 if I could be proud about being Asian, I don't know if there was a lot of pride that was being put outward to other cultures, right? There must have been a lot of Korean pride within Korea and that stuff, but we weren't allowed to celebrate other people's races, or, we weren't able to look on TV and watch a K-drama. We weren't able to look and see Crazy Rich Asians and see hot Asian men and hot women that weren't being objectified, but actually in a story. So I think time has also helped that, or where our society is today too. In my teens and my early 20s, I definitely had a weird transition period. My parents and I didn't get along at the time. I moved out when I was younger. I moved out when I was 16. I struggled through those years, to support myself. There were things that I did that I may not have been proud of, and situations that I put myself into that were bad. And I'm very lucky to come out safe and sound and a productive human being of society, but I could have went the other way. And I don't think I feel shame. I just think that it's something that I've had to accept and said, okay, that's happened. That's part of my life. And now I move on and do this part. My poor parents. Back then, I thought it was all them. They were strict. I was adopted. My sister's adopted, but she looks exactly like my parents. But I was the firstborn, and oh my God, I couldn't do anything. Like everything was a struggle. And back then, I mean, now I look back, I was like, it's not that bad. But back when you're 12 and you just want to go to the mall with your friends, or you want to do something, like it's the end of the world. Like from a young age, I would watch things like movies and be like, I want to be put in that situation. I want to do drugs. I want to go to rehab. And like, it just filled my head, and I just kind of went down that path. So I think from 12, 13, there was a lot of ups and downs. There was visits that had so many psychiatrists and therapists, and put in programs. Like, I don't know if West Coast has this, but it was called PINS, People in Need of Supervision. So I was a troublemaker, but always on the surface, because I always knew how to pull myself out. I was kind of like always balancing that level. And I think eventually my parents said, we can't do this anymore. And I said, I don't want to live with you anymore. So I moved out and moved into a friend's house, which was a whole other story in its own. But it was definitely hard times. I remember it continued on into, I graduated when I was 17. I was pretty young. I went to college. And I remember there were some very lonely moments where everyone else would go home for holidays and I would still be at the dorms and things like that. And we probably had a tumultuous relationship into my mid-20s. And then I think as I moved to California, and it was funny, when I moved across the country, we became closer. But I saw a change in my parents too. They started to accept who I was. So no longer was, oh, Jen didn't do this, or Jenny, as they call me, didn't do this and that. She's not going to church. She's not doing this. It was more like, well, she's pretty accomplished. She's doing what she needs to do. She's independent. She hasn't ended up in jail or, an unwed mother. The things that matter to my parents. So, especially since my 30s, they're very proud. They don't understand this life, but they're very proud and they're very excited, and they want me to send pictures of everything that I do in the house, and we FaceTime every week, and we've grown very close. We still fight a lot about certain things like politics and religion, but in the end, it's came full circle, and it's both of us accepting each other for who we are and saying, well, this is family and we love each other. I think in the past, intimacy, it's easy for me, but it's not easy to maintain. Does that make sense? So I think because I was adopted, there was always this issue, especially when I was younger, of abandonment. So is this person really going to stay around? Does this person really mean I love you? There's always a test. So I think early on in my relationships, I would push you away. That was something that I've grown out of. I still test people for sure, but it's much less than I do because I have trust in myself now. And trust that, I'm gonna pick someone to be in my life, whether it's a friend or a boyfriend or, a lifelong partner that is gonna love me because I love myself. But intimacy, I was always more intimate with friends than I was partners because I think it was less of obligation or less of you didn't expect as much from a friend than you did your partner. And I think you still get in those loops of, a friend can make us mad and we might say, that made me mad. And if your partner makes you mad, you're screaming and yelling. Like there's such a difference in your reaction. And it's interesting to see. It's just, I think you expect more of your partner, your husband, your wife. But I go through waves of intimacy. Sometimes I'm a very sexual person, sometimes I'm not. And I think if you talk and communicate that with your partner, it's important. So they understand what's going on too. Money, for sure. Financial stability, having your own business. As everyone knows, as a freelancer, you can have an amazing month and then you can have a shit month. And, comparing yourself to others too. Knowing that I'm approaching 40 and thinking of what I thought 40 was 30 years ago and what it is now is a complete shock. 40 is what our parents were, what our old teachers were. It wasn't what we are. And now we're very young 30s, we're very young 40s, but it's also like, I want to own a house. Should I have kids? Should I have more than one car? Should I have another house somewhere? Like, you know, are there things that I should be doing? And that's all material things, but that's what I think most of us grew up on, right?
Yeah.
This is what we were supposed to have: the house, the 2 cars, the kids, the dog, the engagement ring, the marriage, the big wedding. So I think those are struggles, because I think I still very much have an old-fashioned brain when it comes to that stuff. In the morning when no one's up. In the afternoon after working. Singing. I can't lie, I don't have a poker face. All the time.